Hello everyone. So today I want to discuss about developing corporate strategy and developing corporate strategy. Okay. Before of this topic, we discuss about the crafting, business strategy, creating, strategy implementation, and now we try to focus on how that we can develop the corporate strategy. And before we explain more further about this, we have to really remember about the concept of strategy again and again, because once we discuss more further about this, we will notice there's a few of them that sometimes we can see a few of terms quite make us confused about the concept of strategy, and there are some differences, and hence we have to know how to distinguish between a corporate strategy, business strategy, strategic management, and strategy itself. So hopefully, the more we discuss about the strategy, the more we discuss about the topic and every topic in strategic management, we will develop our understanding more clear about this. Right? Yeah, now you can see from learning outcomes. Okay, this is something that you can also review and read again and again from the slide that I will share later. Okay, how that we can define about the corporate strategy and then understand the role of economies of scope. Economies of scope as a concept, if you still remember in subject of economy, economies of scope, economies of scale. There are two differences between economies of scope and economies of scale. We have to understand the role of economies of scope. So if you are very clear and you are very understand about the concept of this economy of scope, I think there are no something things no something strange and weird about this. Okay, and revenue enhancement, synergy in corporate strategy. Okay, how that we can identify the types of different type of diversification. Diversification, right? And explain how a company can successfully enter attractive industry when those industry have the greatest barrier to entry. Okay, I have once a visitor cat from outside. So sorry about the interruption. And then describe, the relationship between corporate strategy and competitive advantage. We have to know the relationship between the corporate strategy and competitive advantage, because we should know now. Suppose that we are very clear that's a competitive advantage, one of our important elements in strategy. How that we can sustain in order for us to sustain in business. Of course, we need a competitive advantage. We have to stand out from other competitor, and we must have our uniqueness, so that we can develop our competitive advantage. That's not yet we discuss about how that we can position in a competitive, how that we can put our position in a competitive advantage. That another explanation about that. Explain the differences between corporate strategy in stable and dynamic context. Explain the differences between corporate strategy in stable and dynamic context. So I think we supposed to know, and we have been discussed about this strategy in dynamics context. Because we know that in real world there are no statics of the business. So business is moving, growing, and will change over the time. So that's we have to know how to adapt in this dynamic situation. Okay. The question is that you can see, why would a firm that makes light bulbs also makes elevators? Okay. So why would a firm that makes light bulb also make elevator? Okay. So if you are in the table business, does it make sense to be in the chair business too? Okay. Table that means you are in the making of you are a manufacturer of table, no, this table. And then does it make sense that you also can involve in the making or manufacturing a chair for business too? If your core business activities result in innovative new products, should you retain ownership of these products and the units responsible for them, or does it make more sense to sell them? So all of these questions actually the fundamental of corporate strategy. Okay, so that's why we touch about economies of scope. Economy of scope refer to how that you can, I think, be a dominant, and how that you diversify your product. For example, if you are in pharmaceutical business, you can see in a pharmaceutical business, they are not producing only Panadol. Now they are producing other type of uh, product that can cure headache, can cure fever. Yeah, you get a soluble Panadol soluble, you get Panadol Activas, and so on. So that's all. That's because they want to conquer economies of scope. The scope become bigger, so one company can control a few line of product. Okay, so that's why we should understand why this question as a fundamental to corporate strategy. Okay, that's a fundamental for corporate strategy, right? So corporate strategy must address issue related to decision about entering or exiting of company. Okay, so you must remember that must address address issues. Okay, must address issue about entering and existing industry. Okay, so you know this is not very simple task actually. So that's why when we discuss about the corporate strategy is involved, not only operational level, but it must involve top management level, because they are those that can uh, make a very big decision in company. Okay, and so when we discuss about the decision to enter or exit industry, so I'm not sure about this. I was discuss about that in this subject or other subject, because I also have another subject that relate with strategy, like a business strategy subjects. Okay, one of other things that's one of the very common story when we discuss about how that we want to enter or exit of industry. The story about Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola who try to enter business in wine production. Even a very well-established corporation like Coca-Cola also make a wrong decision to enter an industry, wine making industry, and at one stage they have to give up, and they have to sell all that business to other company who very specialist in wine industry. Okay, so this is if you try to do your own research about uh, the story of enter and exit industry, you can realize how important of this decision, and how big of this decision, and it's not easy actually to make this kind of a decision. You have to very careful, and your decision whether can make a big profit to organization, or can make a big loss to the organization. Okay, so specifically effective corporate strategy must answer three interrelated question like this. So in which business arena? So still remember, right? So we been used about this term. So, with which arena should our company compete? Easy or simple term, maybe we can say which place that we have to compete, which new business area that we can compete. Okay. How can we as a corporate parent, add value to our various lines of business? So we know that a lot of big corporation, yeah, they will develop their business not only as one company. They will develop a few of company that focusing on so many business, but normally that's a mother company or parent company. And their subsidiary of company will have some relation or in term of expertise, in term of resources, in term of core competencies. So all of this actually will help their new scope of business, okay, to sustain and to move to success. Okay, so how that can mother company or parent company can add value to another line of business. Okay? And how will diversification or our entry into new industry help us compete in our other businesses? So this is about how that's a corporate parent or mother company will add value. And okay, this one about how that we can see the new entrant can help us compete. That means can develop maybe add a value to mother company, for example. Okay, uh, so that's a few interrelated these a few of interrelated questions that we uh, can address. We must address. Okay, whether we want to enter or exit. Okay, an industry. And corporate strategy also deals with issues affecting the overall management of a multi-business enterprise. So we are dealing, actually, when we discuss about corporate strategy, we are dealing about issue affecting the overall management of multi-business enterprise. Okay, so again, you have to remember about the concept of economies of scope. That means now we try to focus our discussion by taking advantage or taking example from big or multi business enterprise. So such as a top level effort to orchestrate synergies across business units. And then synergy occurs when the combined benefit of a firm activities in two or more arenas are more than the simple sum of those benefits alone. Okay, so synergies occur when the combined benefit of firm activities in two or more arena are more than the simple sum of those benefit alone. So it's add value. It's add value if they combine or they develop new line of business. After all, corporate level strategy must maintain strategic coherence across business unit and facilitate cooperation or competition among unit in order to create value for shareholders. And thus, all those fundamentally related to each other through the common goal of achieving a competitive advantage. Business strategy and corporate strategy have different objectives. Okay, so now we should know and we should develop our understanding about the business strategy and corporate strategy. Recall that we introduced the important fact that most firms are multi-product organization in our earlier discussion of industry analysis, value chain and market segmentation. This will be into the important fact, the most important of multi-product organization in our early discussion of industry analysis, value chain, and market segmentation. That's why we are now going to discuss in some details the way in which managers can create and squander value through diversification. Okay, let's see much bigger about this. Okay, diversification is degree into which a firm conduct business in more than one arena. Okay, this is when we can define about diversification. Degree to which a firm conduct business in more than one arena. Okay. So we'll focus on six aspects of corporate strategy as it as affect diversification decision. Okay. So diversification decision, that means you have to consider whether you want to enter or exit of that industry. Okay. So we focus on six aspects. Six aspects of corporate strategy as it affect diversification decision. So we review our understanding of corporate strategy, and define the diversification. Again, if you still remember about this, okay, you have to remember about this diversification. We can define as a degree to which a firm conducts business in more than one arena. Okay, so we review our understanding about this about corporate strategy and define diversification and show how that both concepts have changed over time, and will identify the potential sources of economic gain that makes diversification, okay, attractive. So there are no point for us to do another one project or business line if they are not attractive at all. We'll describe alternative form of diversification. We'll describe alternative form of diversification and will present a rational logic guiding corporate decision about adding businesses. So diversification is about adding businesses. You adding the value, you adding the value to your parent company. And it can relate with the parents company expertise. Okay, so that's actually will present a rationale, what the logic for us to add a business, and we'll revisit the relationship between corporate strategy and competitive advantage. So actually, when we explain about the relationship, meaning that's how that corporate strategy can develop the competitive advantage, especially for the parents company. We'll amplify our discussion of the role of corporate strategy in dynamics context. So again, we need to understand the business are not static, moving over the time and can change over the time. Whatever you plan for this year, it can follow as a plan, but when the time comes, it can change at any time. You have to change and you have to respond very fast. Okay, so this is how that we can discuss the role of corporate strategy in the dynamics context. Okay. This is example for diversification profiles, not too clear but from here, but this is just only a few of big corporation. I think some of them we know very well. For example, 3M, GE, things they well established from US. Okay, then 3Ms, that's product scope. You can see from there. Try to make it bigger for us to make it more clear. Okay, okay, sorry, my visitor. Okay, try to look around. For example, GE product scope, you can see from there insurance, commercial finance, power system, and then consumer finance, aircraft, engine, medical system, industry product and system, consumer product, right? And in terms of scope, geographic scope, you can see from and in US they operate more than 50% up to 60% on their business operate in US. Okay, and then 3M, 3M operate a business in US smaller compared with GE. That's why I think maybe their decision because of their corporate strategy to uh, play a big influence and role for them to operate in US or Asia Pacific or Europe, right? Okay, economic logic of diversification. So, what the element of element can economic logic can play in diversification? We can see they are focusing on synergy. Synergy. Okay, the synergy. So, expanding the firm scope, whether the addition of new vertical, horizontal, complementary, or geographic arenas doesn't necessarily create value for shareholders. Okay, so strategies need to understand. Strategies mean not only strategies meaning the professional strategies, but you as a manager also a strategist. You a business owner also a strategist. So strategists need to understand the sources of potential value creation from diversification. Okay, and they need to know how to determine whether a firm can leverage those sources. Leverage means something that you can use whatever source that you have now, you can full utilize it. For example, if you have an asset in one place, you can use not only on developing one product, but you can also use the same asset to develop another one's product, and that's the leverage. You can leverage and full utilize your capacity, your sources. So that's why we are going to turn to two concepts that are critical in evaluating opportunities for diversification and value creation, what we call as a economies of scope and revenue enhancement. Okay, all right, and revenue enhancement. Very, I think some of us maybe we can show off, show off about the term of revenue enhancement. If you present to your top management, for example, about how that you want to develop a new product, you want to maybe pitch about to get a support from top management to develop a new line of business. So what is your main objective for develop for a new line of business? Maybe you can explain, oh boss, because this is we have to develop our economies of scope, and one the most important thing is revenue enhancement. So our income from our selling and must enhancement. So economies of scope condition, this is a explanation about the condition under which lower total average cost result from sharing resources. Okay, see, this is sharing resources is related and can explain so much about leverage, about leverage. Okay. Okay, sharing resources to produce more than one product or service. Okay, so get it. I mean, I give example before how that you can use the same asset to develop not only one product, but you can develop another product. okay, product or service. So economies of scope are reduction in average cost, reduction average cost, like average cost per unit, for example, that result from producing two or more product jointly instead of producing them separately. So that's about the leverage. It's about leverage. The concept of economy of scope can be represented by following formula. Okay, this is simple like this. And then economies of scope are possible when the company can leverage a resource or value chain activity across more than one product, service, or geographics arena. Okay. Okay, so this is we use more frequently and more detail in depth about the revenue enhancement strategies. Okay, so revenue enhancement strategies exist when total sales are greater if two products are sold and distributed within one company than when they are owned by separate company. Okay. So put another way, while economies of scope relate to cutting costs, revenue enhancement strategy relate to growing revenues. In short, it's the difference between strategies that allow you to make more business by saving on expenses and those that allow you to grow the business. Okay. So this can be represented by this formula. Okay, you can see from this. Okay. Okay, this is a few terms I think we will touch before about the type of diversifications in the slide. I think a few last slides about vertical scope, horizontal scope, or geographic scope. How that you can diversify. A few of type that you can diversify. Maybe vertical, maybe horizontal, or in term of geographic scope. So there are reasons that industry have higher average profit. One critical reason is that it likely has strong entry barriers. Okay, for example, if you can see how that you want to enter sport clothes, high brand like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, that's industry quite high barrier, very strong entry to barrier that they develop because they expand very much on their branding development. You can see how much that they expand for marketing, for sponsorship. Okay, so consequently, the most attractive market are generally the hardest to enter. The most attractive markets are generally the hardest to enter. For example, oil and gas industry, maybe very attractive, very high profit, but it's very hard to enter. So there are three ways to solve this paradox. The first, entry barrier can be circumvented by acquiring a company already in the industry. Okay, so this is what Geely, for example, did for enter this region market in automobile industry by combines and by acquiring and maybe cooperate with local company like Proton. And you can see they not only focus on Proton, but they also buy over a very big share in Volvo. So how that's happened to enter the market, especially in the region that they can't move alone. Okay. And then second, a firm can enter in a manner that incumbent don't initially take notice of your entry. This is maybe you can use the strategy that your incumbent didn't realize. In sudden you the incumbent company or organizations just realize that you are already in the industry and now ready to compete with the incumbent company. Okay, and then third, entry should exploit something that new entrant can do with a cost advantage over incumbents and other new entrant. This is how that you have to very good in cost analysis, cost analysis, production, and see how that you can develop your value chain, especially with supplier. So that's a value chain you must study how that you can develop until the incumbent maybe can compete in terms of your advantage for as a newcomer, okay, as a new entry. Okay, many firms have attempted to enter the industry, but few have succeeded. Few have succeeded. It's a real story in establishing the competitive position. So, a successful niche entry to enter is the case of Red Bull. This is another one case. We can be a very good example how that they are focusing on a niche. So rather than into enter into the heart of the market, Red Bull enter the niche market of energy drink. Okay, they are not enter the market for maybe uh, like other or incumbent company. So they try to develop their niche, okay, which is focusing on energy drink. Okay, and another one's strategy that we can use to enter the market, we have to use any new technology or what we call as a revolutionary strategy, like what happened to Skype, for example. Okay, at one time you can see Skype play a very important role for us to call from overseas, or we want to call to overseas. So in that time you can see Skypes use a different technology, different technology, like what you can see from here, voice over internet protocol, VoIP, that allow their customer to utilize their PCs and then to call abroad with a very cost effective, very cheap. Okay. Okay, and maybe for well-developed company like Walmart can leverage their existing resources as their existing resources. So this is how that you can enter the new market, because you leverage, you can leverage your existing resources. That means you can compete with the incumbents company. Okay, consider what's happened in Walmart here. Okay, consider Walmart enter into soft drink business in early 1990s, and so what resources Walmart could bring to the table were chef a space on and a top flight distribution network was the existing resources by Walmart, right? And we can also combine the strategies. For example, you can see Skype combine it reconfigure value chain with a niche strategy. This specifically targeted price sensitive customer, price sensitive customers. So, and can tolerate with maybe little inferior quality. And Walmart entry into soft drink was a combination of leveraging their existing resources with reconfigure value chain. They did not distribute through typical retailers. They make no attempt to secure function, okay, drink contracts, and they do not stock vending machine except at their own properties. Okay, this is combination strategies. Okay, so what relationship and actually how important of this corporate strategy to develop the competitive advantage. Okay, you can see at the business level, okay, competitive advantage reflect the relative position of a firm compared to position of industry rivals. Okay, So at the corporate level, it reflects management success in creating more value. Okay, so if you still remember about the first class, I think I show about the definition from Harvard professor explained about the strategy definition, right? How that add definition of strategy can be simplified as any added value to company that's customer willing to pay. Okay, so more value from the firm's business unit than those units could create as standalone enterprises or subsidiaries. So our goal is to identify the condition under which the strategy of owning a corporate portfolio of business create value for shareholders. Okay. So the key to logical connection is relatedness. Relatedness. Okay. So business can be related along several different dimensions, including similarity in market, use of identical resources, and reliance on comparable dominant logic. So GE, for instance, participate in such far-flung enterprise as jet engine, elevators, light bulb, appliance, and financial services. So each of these businesses, however, is located in a business unit with conceptually similar unit. Okay, so the key to logical connection is relatedness. Okay, relatedness. So at the corporate level, in the VRINE framework, valuable, rare, immutable, non-substitutable, okay, exploitable, okay. So they must be supplemented by an additional factor, namely how specialized or general a firm's resources are. Okay. Okay, in perspective of implementation. So implementation levels include organizational structure, system and processes, and people and rewards. So everything we have to consider. And then strategic leaders use these levels to implement strategies, and the success with which diversified firms are managed in record with key organizational feature has a significant effect on the level of value that can be created through their portfolios. So implementation levels, okay, that are critical for corporate strategy vary from firm to firm. Okay, is different, but because of unique different kind of organization, and but some of the more important levels to achieve successful diversification include knowledge transfer mechanism, coordinations mechanism, reward, and corporate oversight. Okay, this topic about how that we should know and realize. Suppose that we should realize that business not static, and that's why we have to relate our corporate strategy in stable and dynamic context. Okay, for adaptive incorporation, for instance, okay, was once an integrated maker of both computer hardware and software. So the strategy was logical because, okay, the firm could attract synergy from operation in such complementary businesses. So Adaptec soon discovered, however, that rapid changes in technologies and advance by competitors were weakening its ability to maneuver well in both areas. Okay, so in 1999, therefore, Adaptec spun off its software side as Rockzio through an IPO. So sometimes you have to make a decision to maybe just focus on smaller or narrower scope to adapt with dynamics situation. Okay, so it's involved the corporate strategy. So it's maybe a backwards step, but that's uh, right decision on that time actually. eh? If we still remember about the corporate strategy is about economies of scope, something that relate closely with economies of scope. Okay, it not necessarily we have to build up or maybe to make more business line. Sometimes we need to reduce that business line. Okay, this is something involved and relationship between corporate strategy in stable or in dynamic context. Okay, despite the example of adapted and recall, both of which have used diversification to increase corporate focus. So diversification can be a viable strategy in dynamic context. So bear in mind, however, that firms seeking to diversify in dynamic context usually need strong resources. Okay, need strong resources and capabilities in the areas of learning, knowledge transfer, and rapid responsiveness. Okay, so we have to very careful about this, because we have to know that our capability in terms of our expertise, our talent inside of industry, right? Okay, this is just a comparison between comparison of corporate strategy in stable and dynamic context. So we discuss this one bit further because it's important for us to know that a business always change over the time, and sometimes it change rapidly. Okay, so in stable context, for example, can see top management. Top management team emphasizes collaboration among the businesses and the form of that collaboration. And dynamic contact, top management team emphasizes the creation of the collaboration contact that is rich in terms of contents and engage, and so on. So I don't have to explain this one by one. Just can the concept of dynamic contact. That means you have to respond accordingly, and have to good capability to respond in fast, and how that's we can respond with unexpected circumstances, to avoid maybe long-term loss, and to make sure that our strategy still be our corporate strategy can contribute to competitive advantage. Okay, this is example. That's how that we can evaluate the diversification. Okay, this is a case at Disney. At Disney, right? See that Disney not only first, maybe you can still remember that Disney was developed by uh, a few of cartoon character, right? And they are moving, growing and growing. So not only in that area. Okay, you can see it can involve in park and resort and media network and studio entertainment, consumer product. Even in Malaysia, you can see Lego, one of the very well established brand. They not only involve only on the toys, but they are now developing and diversify their business not on resort, amusement park, and then a lot of things. They develop their business, cinema as well. Okay, uh, so you can use a few of these analysis. Okay, how that you can evaluate to diversify. This is an example, how that's an example of in Disney business unit of the rank score. So how that they can develop this score, and the strength of five forces score, right? Business unit, okay, size, how much of that business unit size or business unit profit margin, okay, and then industry weighted average profit margin, the industry adjusted business unit profit margin. Okay, so this is a case in Disney. right? And then is the portfolio. So you can see from here, this is a very good example to make people, especially from top management, realize that there are a lot of tool actually for us to develop our strategic management, not only SWOT analysis again and again. So there are a lot out there, a few tool how that we can develop our strategy and how that we can plan our strategy, right? This ni portfolio, this is for example in park resort 5.88%, okay, media network, right, studio, entertainment, consumer product, okay. And then this is some review question. So what we discussed about this topic, okay, how does corporate strategy differ from business strategy? Okay. So now we should know how to distinguish between these two terms, and then how has the practice of corporate strategy evolved over time? Okay, what is conglomerate? So how can manager decide whether they should diversify into a new business or not? So what are the type of diversification, and how is value created by each type? And what is the difference between economy of scope and synergies? Okay, what is relationship between diversification and firm performance, or relate with their competitive advantage? So what factors tend to limit the attractiveness of diversification, and how does a dynamic industry context affect the possible benefit of diversification? Okay, you don't just have to diversify and want to grow fast and fast, but actually there are not we don't have any effect to industry to that we involving. Okay, that's all for this chapter, and we will uh, continue with other chapter. Okay, thank you very much.